Weaverville. My great disappointment was my first night on council. What was it? Boston Market. Man, I don't know if you remember the old Boston Market chain. I like Boston Market, but they were wanting to come. They wanted to be on the other side of the Waffle House, or I believe there's a bank now. But what they wanted to do was they wanted to put in a whole lot of fill there because they needed room for their restaurant. They wanted a big parking lot. And this was an example of the kind of land use I would call it first, which would be a very localized issue. It was not major concerns on what the development was going to be. It was just, local folks. The folks across the ravine on, I guess it's Alexander Road, I believe that would be, the side on the Weaverville side of the interstate. They weren't real thrilled by all that fill you were talking about, both because of the fill issues, what that would do, but also as tends to be the case. You really don't necessarily want a fast food restaurant close by. Generally, issues as to smell and issues as to noise is what you'll generally hear objecting to it. So it got turned down, but I was going to say, we'll get us a Boston Market somewhere. Unfortunately, it has not been to date, and I think they went bankrupt. But then where the dam truly bursts is the McPhail property, which today that phrase probably doesn't necessarily mean much to anybody, but you heard it better than I do. I guess the McPhail sisters by the turn of the century have inherited the property.
Correct. And that is Dr. Reagan, my great-great-grandfather's property, with the houses still there and the house on the corner. So Dr. Reagan owned all of the property basically from there back toward where Reagan Street is off Church Street now and back.
Which where the Goodwill is, Zaxby's, that area there. So, by the year 2000, we've long since established the shopping center down there where the grocery stores are. And so that's a road people are going up and down now. And if you're living on Main Street, toward the corner there, it's your backyard kind of there you're worried about. And what triggers the issue is bylaw. Now, y'all may recall, but it's been a few years now, bylaw used to be across the street, over there where La Coretta is and those folks like that. There was a Bilo grocery store there. Well, they didn't want to leave Weaverville, as it turns out, because they come to council with a plan for one of their really seriously fancy grocery stores. So I've been down to South Carolina and been into a Bilo or two down there. It's a really fancy grocery store. They come to council wanting to put that there where the McPhail property is. And a detail that turns out to be extremely important going forward. They propose, among other things, to go ahead and access Old Weaverville, I call it, all the original town. They're going to access it in the back. Now, from the town's perspective, by between the administration, Mike Morgan, folks like that, this can be a very good thing. Two ideas, at least. From an emergency vehicle point of view, whenever Main Street gets closed, I think for, say, parade, July 4th, anything, is a real concern, moving emergency vehicles. By having that access there, it's less of a concern. You can bypass Main Street. There's also a second issue, which I didn't find out until later on, how far it went back. I saw something from Larry Sprinkle, where as far back at least as 1980, the U.S. DOT was pointing out at the town of Weaverville, someday, not saying 1980, but someday, if you live there in Old Weaverville, you're going to reach the point where you're going to have an extremely hard time turning left onto Main Street. I think we're at that day. I think we've been at that day for a while. So what DOT is telling town is that, you guys really need to be looking at getting some kind of right-of-way that you can connect to Weaver Boulevard out of the old part of Weaverville, so that then people can go that way as well as trying to turn left up here on Main Street. So that's in the back of the mind, too, is why this might be a good idea. And so, initially, the town's drastic about this proposal, but it generates two kinds of opposition fairly quickly. One is simply Do you really, if you live on Main Street, do you want a big, super fancy grocery store, which, I don't know, might be open 24 hours a day for all I know. The fancy grocery stores tend to do those kind of things. Do you want that in your backyard? So you've got that opposition. But it turns out that connection was extremely controversial, because there's plenty of folks who then live over there who still are, they're still being able to make that left turn on Main Street. So that's still not a real concern at that point. But what they can see is that this is the opening round for making Alabama Avenue in particular a major through street. That as you start doing that, then those residential areas are going to start becoming less desirable, because now you've got all sorts of traffic. Those two controversies together really kill that project. It is being bounced around for a while, but it never gets built. However, it does get other developers to thinking about that property. So I would say we probably spent that decade from about 2000 to about 2009, 2010, maybe 2011. That property was always on our front part of the stove, and it was always extremely controversial, trying to figure out what in the world you're going to do with it. Because again, look at it from the McPhail sisters' point of view. They own this real estate. This allegedly is a free country, which I can do what I want to do with my land. I've got the possibility for a nice return on my investment as years go by. By the same token, from a town planning point of view, you really want to keep up that residential barrier. I mean, you've already got Ingalls by year 2000, I believe. Yeah. You've got the shopping centers down here. So where do you draw the line? The finally giving point is that developers who come to the town with a plan looking very much like what's there now, they come to the town, that again does not get approved. So instead they say, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to build a whole lot of low-income housing on that land. And your zoning allows us to do this, therefore we're going to do it. Town says no to that. They go to court, and the judge rules, well, no, under your own rules, they can do this. And so the issue at that point then becomes not, can we keep this residential, this nice, you call it forest over here? The issue becomes, does the developer build this project for the low-income housing, or does he build this other project with the commercial area? So at that point, the town has that choice to make, and that's kind of history why you see what you see now